Yo, what's going on, YouTube? I thought I'd do something kind of cool for you guys today. This is gonna be kind of like my full guitar DI editing guide. Let's see if I can show you guys how I edit my guitars. Me and my guitar player just finished wrapping up our first tracking session for our album that's coming up for my band, Son of Erebus. If you like kind of like Nile, Behemoth, Demon Borgir, Septic Flesh, it's kind of that kind of style. So like black and death metal. That's kind of what we play. I thought I'd show you, how I edit one of my songs and stuff. That'd be really cool. I'm gonna try to keep it short though, because editing guitars can take a while. So that that's something to just keep in mind. You may see me kind of skip ahead and jump to areas that I think are important. But before we get in the video, I want you guys to check out the links that I have below. One of the links is my EQ and compression cheat sheet. It's my starting points for all mixes that I do. It's just my go-to settings right off the bat to get a nice, good mix going. And if you're looking for a one-stop shop on how to learn how to mix, produce, program your own music, check out the second link. That's my online course I made specifically for guitar players that are struggling with all those issues. All right, so on to the video. We got my song here. And before I actually jump into the editing part, I really want to make a valid point here. It all comes down to the tracking, guys. It really does. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't track well, no amount of editing is going to save your tracks. It's shit in, shit out. You can't polish a turd, as the saying goes. So you got to make sure that the playing is tight. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this track that I recorded with my guitar player wasn't up to my usual standards that I place on myself. It was Eddie's first time being under the microscope in such a way that I didn't want to overwhelm him with how I usually would do it. Now, Eddie is a fantastic guitar player, so there wasn't really much for me to worry about. However, I know I could have gotten a little bit more out of him. And you'll see that in the end on a particular riff where I did kind of start implementing my usual techniques, that there isn't actually any necessary need for editing, which is actually the goal. You want to track so insanely tight that editing becomes basically a non-issue. It doesn't need to happen. But anyways, that being said, let's go ahead and show you how I would edit. Now, the first thing I want you guys to pay attention to is I don't track with amplifiers. I track strictly DI, and I reamp later. Now, you'll see here, especially like in sections like this, I chose not to edit these. Some people would actually just go in here and kind of scoot that back and make these two exactly the same. I felt that that was unnecessary, and you're going to hear that even though they're not on the ball, they're still really tight. Now, the trick to this is doing all of this in mono, straight up. When you track yourself and you place one guitar track over the other in mono, if they sound almost mono, then you're actually in a really good spot. But if you start kind of getting that chorusy weird effect, which I'll show you in another section, that's when you need to go back and re-record it and re-record it, re-record it and re-record it until it's done. The last session we did together took like 6 hours. So, put on your big boy pants, and that's how you got to do it. So this is what a good recorded section sounds like when you layer two tracks on top of each other that are in mono. You're not going to hear really that much of the chorus effect that happens when they're played very bad. And so that's how a really well tracked guitar riff sounds like. Now, if you notice, there's only really, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 cuts that I did. And that's kind of what you're going for, as least amount of augmentation as possible, especially on guitar tracks. It's super noticeable. Now, when I did play the playthrough, you did hear a couple pops. That's because I didn't crossfade the cuts that I did prior to recording this. Now, I'm going to show you what to do once you do it, but this is a good example right here as to what to do when you do have a note that you want to fix. So what you're going to want to do is then cut it right in the middle like I did here. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to scoot this back. So if you take the original, which looks like this, you're going to scoot it back like this with slip editing. And that's basically the first lesson, is you're going to use slip editing like this to kind of move it back. So let me show you that in real time. I'm going to go ahead and delete this section. I'm going to pull it back here. So we're going to cut this. We're going to pull this back until it kind of lines up. And then the second part of this is then you're going to grab both highlighted areas. So this is the new section and this is the old section. Then you're just going to move the region over like that. Boom. And then you're just going to readjust it. Make sure that these two kind of line up a little bit more. And then now you're done. And that's pretty much it when it comes to guitar editing. I don't really have anything else special. I'll go through another few more examples in different types of riffs and stuff. But I'm going to actually line these up a little bit more. There we go. And then you crossfade, just like how I did here. Now, the crossfade you want to do is called a logarithmic. As you can see that highlighted on the screen, it says logarithmic fade. This is a linear fade for guitar and bass and audio in general, raw audio. And you want to do logarithmic fades. Now here we got some lead guitars, some tremolo picking lead guitars that Eddie did. And I'm not going to edit these. You're going to hear that mono phase thing that I was previously mentioning, where you hear them kind of chorusing in and out and not sounding like one instrument. With lead guitars like this, that's actually okay. They're being played so fast that you're not going to notice it in the mix. However, if it's like a harmony or like kind of like an Iron Maiden thing where they're playing two harmonies at the same time, those you kind of want to get a little bit more in the pocket. When it comes to tremolos like this, you can kind of get away with it. But I figured I'd show you guys this an example because in metal we do tend to tremolo up pick a lot. However, if this was a rhythm section, I would have actually had Eddie play it way more tightly because the rhythms need to be insanely tight. The leads, I don't want to give you guys the impression that you can get away with a little bit more leniency, but in this case, it was a creative decision, and I decided to just leave them as they were because in context of the track, I didn't hear a big detriment to my song. So yeah, that is actually okay with me. If I put them on the left and right sides of your speakers or your earphones, you'll be hard pressed to tell that they weren't played exactly alike. Now I do have another section immediately after that that is a part of the rhythm guitars that is tremolo picked as well. And with this one, I had him play it over and over and over and over until he basically got it right. And that's why you don't see any edits on this except the last two sections here. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you to hear how that sounds. Much tighter. With tremolo picking, though, it's impossible to get it sounding like, on point 100% of the time where it's fully mono. But this is very well played and good enough for that particular section on the rhythm guitars. Now, here's the reason I actually wanted to make the video for you guys. You could probably wonder, like, man, this is, he must have edited the shit out of these guitars. Like, there's so many cuts on these particular sections. Okay, granted, that may seem that way, but in reality, this riff, I had Eddie chop up. So each section that you see is a different section of the riff that I had him play over and over and over. That's actually the secret to great guitar tone, is having it played so tight that the distortion almost becomes kind of like an amplifier that makes the performance even cooler. I know I've seen people try to use distortion as a way to, cover up their mistakes. But I guarantee you, if you have a really well played a really well played guitar track and you have low gain, it's going to sound massive. I guarantee it. Now let's play these two together and I want you to hear how insanely tight this sounds. Disregard the kicks and pops. That's, for me not crossfading it, but regardless of that fact. That is insane. I'm going to play it for you with distortion. That sounds insane. So that is the reason I wanted to make this video, because that is actually what you're supposed to do. That's exactly how you're supposed to track your guitars. If you see yourself struggling or you see your band members struggling, break up the riff into smaller chunks that are comfortable for them to play. Have them played until they're on the grid. As you can tell, Eddie is immaculately played these parts. And then what you want to do is then, once you record one side like this, do the next side immediately. Don't just keep going forward. Do the left and right, one chunk at a time. Left and right, boom. Move on to the next chunk. Left, right, boom, done. On to the next chunk. Left, right, boom, done. On to the next one. That is the secret. That is the reason I made this video, because, to be honest, people are lazy and they don't want to do that. They don't want to sit there for 6 hours like we did and get this shit right. But let's hear that section again. That's ridiculous. Let's hear another section. Let's hear that tremolo section that I was talking about right here. Now, not as tight as the other one, but again, it's a tremolo section, so it's not going to be able to be, you're not going to be able to get it as tight as something as like the other riff, but that still sounds really, really good. Let's hear another section. That sounds really good as well. That was really well played. Now I'm going to play it for you in mono without the distortion. And I want you guys to hear how that sounds. So there it is. I know this was going to be a guitar editing guide, and I did show you a little bit of that in the beginning, and that's actually how I would edit. I guess I'll show you one more example of how I would edit something. So let's go ahead and delete this, and I'll show you what I did here. So you can tell these three little sections were bang on. This was fantastic. We're very well played. Good job, Eddie. Now, I see here that this one's a bit behind where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right on the grid. So the quarter note right here, I'm going to scooch it over with some slip editing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my regions. I'm going to crossfade it. I'm going to zoom in while they're still highlighted. And I am going to make it a logarithmic crossfade. And then what you do from there is you go to each side and then you scoot it over until that extra audio that would have been there is now gone. In this instance, you don't need it for this one because there is no need for that. So again, that's how I would edit guitars if I had to. But the main example was actually that we tracked this very well. And there wasn't a lot for me to do. You'd probably see a lot of empty spots here. Granted, no shame, we are going to be copy pasting, so it's going to look a lot like this where we copy paste and stuff like that. Last thing I'll mention about that copy paste stuff, no shame in it. Really no shame in it. However, it's not my preferred method. We were pressed for time and we were exhausted after 6 hours, so we just said fuck it. However, the way I would have done it, and the way we're going to do the rest of the records, because we agreed to it, is once you're done with this section, like this, you could copy paste it, or man up, put on your big boy pants, and just re-record it the exact same way you did it prior. So that means that if you got to chop up the riff again and you got to play it again and play it again until it's tight and well played, well, that's what you're going to have to do. That's what Eddie's going to have to do. It's what I'm going to have to do. And if you want to make a really great record with great guitar tones, that's what you're going to have to do. So I hope you guys learned something valuable today. I know that was a bit misleading in the beginning that I said it was going to be editing guide. It actually turned out to be more of like the secret to great guitar recordings. Actually, I think that's what I'll name the video. So if you liked this video, I appreciate it if you liked and subscribed and hit the notification bell to never miss a video when I release one of my weekly videos. And I'd appreciate if you guys left a comment below, letting me know any of your frustrations, your problems, what you hope to accomplish when it comes specifically to, tackling great guitar recordings and editing.